Hey guys, today I wanted to do something special to commemorate the birthday of my favorite pianist, a man named Sviatoslav Richter, who would have been 111 years old today if he had lived to see his 111th birthday. He unfortunately passed away in 1997, so he is not around to celebrate his birthday here with us, but I know that he is celebrating and smiling from up above and playing the piano beautifully. Richter was a very special man. He was deeply complex, but very, very honest and full of integrity. And I think both of these qualities really came through in his music. He was a genius in his own right, but he was uniquely honest in a way that I very much admire, and I think garnered him immediate devotion from legions of people all over the world. He was actually born in Odessa in 1915. His father was a musician, but remarkably, Richter was largely self-taught in his early years, and he did not enter any sort of formal musical training until his early 20s, when he entered the Moscow Conservatory under the renowned teacher Heinrich Neuhaus, actually. He very quickly gained recognition throughout the Soviet Union for his powerful and just deeply thoughtful playing. His international breakthrough came much later, especially after his tours in the United States and Europe during the 1960s. Despite his fame, Richter was intensely, intensely private and actually somewhat quite enigmatic. He abhorred the spotlight. He often performed in dim lighting, and he focused intensely on the music rather than any personal celebrity or pageantry. He was very averse to both. He died in 1997, leaving behind a vast, just rich legacy of recordings and a reputation as one of the most profound and uncompromising artists in classical music history. I wanted to share a little bit, just two short quotes from Richter that I think summarize everything about his person that I admire so much, and what I think has probably made his music as timeless as it's been. These are from his written correspondences. Richter writes, "I am not a complete idiot, but whether from weakness or laziness, I have no talent for thinking. I only know how to reflect. I am a mirror. Logic does not exist for me. I float on the waves of art and life and never really know how to distinguish what belongs to the one or the other, or what is common to both. Life unfolds for me like a theater, presenting a sequence of somewhat unreal sentiments, while the things of art are real to me and go straight to my heart." Richter was also once asked what a person should do in their life if they were a musician, and he responded, "Put a small piano in a truck and drive out on country roads. Take time to discover new scenery. Stop in a pretty place where there is a good church. Upload the piano and tell the residents. Give a concert. Offer flowers to the people who have been so kind as to attend, and leave again." A few years ago, I had the great pleasure of standing at Richter's grave in Moscow. And it was one of the most beautiful moments of my life. There was soft snow falling lightly over his grave. It was a very simple and unassuming grave that very much reflected the simplicity of the man who lay buried there. And there were birds, chirping happily in spite of the deep winter. And I wondered if they had ever heard his music played. So I played his melody, which is a short piece which I'll include below. It's one of my favorite pieces that Richter performed. And I played it for Richter as he slept underneath the cold earth in the snow. It's one of my favorite memories. He truly is one of my heroes, and I don't use that term idly or lightly, but as a term that really captures my sincere love and respect for this man that I have never met, but whose grave I have only visited. I've been hopelessly enchanted by music all my life, maybe unusually so, and I really count myself to have been blessed to have had the opportunity to listen to music that is not only beautiful, but I think very important. I think important because it tells a story that deserves to be immortalized, important because it offers some sort of rare glimpse into the zeitgeist of an era or the weight of a single moment. Language will always encumber our communion with one another. Richter understood this very well, which is why he was quite sparse with his words and didn't entertain much small talk. Music resonates deep within the soul, where words falter. I think classical piano transmutes our human condition quite powerfully and unapologetically. It strips bare every platitude that exists in this world to distract us from ourselves. It refracts away everything that is staid and unauthentic and uncovers what can only be called the numinous within us. And so there have been many great minds and geniuses throughout the human history, and there'll be many more to come. But what strikes me most about Richter was that he just captured everything that it means to be human. His works are rich in meaning and just saturated with every joy and sorrow that has been borne by mankind. I once asked one of my dearest friends, who's a devoted atheist, how he would envision heaven if it were indeed to exist. And he responded very thoughtfully, with his characteristic thoughtfulness, that heaven would be a place where every person could know what it felt like to be every other person that has ever lived, across any and every age. He said that it would be possible to meet someone in heaven and, without ever having to exchange words with them, understand the enormity of their life and what it had felt like to be that person as they were born, grew old, and eventually died. It would be possible to meet someone and know them more intimately than they had ever known themselves, and understand them exactly in the ways they had been tirelessly seeking to be understood, and love them more than they had ever been capable of loving themselves. And as I stood before his grave, I realized that this was the exact world that Richter created for us on earth. When I listen to his music, I hear echoes of that eternal world, and they ring quite clearly. I'm transported to those ages gone by. I'm hearkened back to history that is ancient and forgotten, and I'm swept up into stories that were left half-written and unfinished. I remember what it was like to be young and innocent, and I also understand what it is like to be old and wise. I remember what it was like to be an infant delighting in the arms of her mother, with all of life's riches laying ahead of her. And I understand what it's like to be an aged man who takes his last sip from that same fountain of life. And I understand everything that happens in between. I understand what it is to mourn deeply and dance joyfully, to keep vigil over one's heart with courage, and to grant forgiveness and seek redemption. Richter's music marvels at the improbable audacity of life, the brazenness and capriciousness of it all. He has gifted us with this staggering, I think, temerity and spirit, with quiet pluck and grit, and with boundless intellect and heart. He was a man of great honesty and simplicity, and I think this imbues his music with just the purest love. I thought about Richter when I read Anna Akhmatova's famous poem, "I Taught Myself to Live Simply." And I think that if Richter had to pick one poem that summarized the ethos of his life, it would be this poem. So I wanted to read it as part of this commemoration. I taught myself to live simply. I taught myself to live simply and wisely, to look at the sky and pray to God, and to wander long before evening, to tire my superfluous worries. When the burdocks rustle in the ravine, and the yellow-red rowanberry cluster droops. I compose happy verses about life's decay and beauty. I come back. The fluffy cat licks my palm, purrs so sweetly, and the fire flares bright on the sawmill turret by the lake. Only the cry of a stork landing on the roof occasionally breaks the silence. If you knock on my door, I may not even hear. Thus ends Akhmatova's poem. I will include some links to some of my favorite pieces by Richter below. I hope you take some time to listen to them and spend a few moments in gratitude to this great man who composed such beautiful music for us to enjoy 111 years after he was born.